Hey, welcome to Phrase by Phrase. We are studying the Bible one phrase at a time. We are currently in a study on the book of James, and today we're in James chapter 5, verses 13 through the first part of verse 14. So James begins verse 13 by saying, "Is any among you suffering? Then he must pray." And the word for suffering is in the present tense. So this isn't referring to necessarily a single episode. You're having a bad day or something like that, but this is a persistence in suffering. Somebody's really having a struggle. And the word is general, so it could be suffering in a variety of ways. You know, in the beginning of the letter, James said that we're to consider it all joy when we encounter trials, or we could say when we encounter suffering. But now he's telling the church that they are also to pray when they encounter suffering. And they were not just words to James. He practiced what he preached. In fact, Eusebius wrote of James that James spent so much time in the temple praying that his knees became as hard as camels. He was known as camel knees because of his praying practices. So if anyone's suffering, then he must pray. Then in verse 13 he says, again, verse 13b, "Is anyone cheerful? He is to sing praises." Well, singing is a form of prayer because music is the language of the soul. So it's a way of pouring out our soul to God. And sometimes singing is maybe it is the key to a breakthrough that you're looking for. I remember someone I was discipling years ago. They were not a singer, but they were stuck. They were having some issues spiritually. And so I instructed them. I said, why don't you take a chorus book, a hymnal, and this person owned a lot of land. I said, go out into the middle of your fields where nobody can hear you and just spend an hour singing. I mean, sing to the top of your lungs. Really sing like you do when you're in the shower. I mean, just pour out your heart in song. And he did that. And he sang, and he sang, and he sang, and he had an incredible breakthrough with God and a significant moment in his life. And so singing is an important part of prayer. So is anyone cheerful? Then sing praises. Verse 14 is, anyone among you sick? Then he must call for the elders of the church. Now, the word for sick here means that you're incapacitated. You're brought low with sickness. And yet the word is also very broad. So it could include any serious kind of physical or mental, emotional, spiritual, relational problem that's become just too heavy to bear. And in such a case, James says that this person is to call for the elders of the church, which raises a couple of questions. First of all, who are the elders? And probably the most basic understanding is the elders are the spiritual leaders of the fellowship. So this person is to call for the spiritual leaders of the fellowship. And then why the elders? Why call for them? Well, first, because the elders represent the church. The whole church can't come, but the elders can, or at least some of them could. And second, the elders are preeminently supposed to be people of prayer. When they're spiritual leaders in the church, that doesn't mean they're the people in your fellowship that have the highest income or are best known. It means that they are spiritual people, which would assume that they are people of prayer. And notice in this situation that James places the responsibility for calling for this prayer meeting on the person who's sick. They're to call the elders, to ask the elders to come to them. They're expected to initiate the contact. But then the elders are expected to respond and go to the sick person. And the reason for that is assumed by the text that the person is just too ill to be able to come to the elders and is too ill to be able to pray for themselves. And then notice also that it speaks in the plural. They're to call the elders. So there's more than one going on here. And that's important for a number of reasons. There's strength in numbers, and their presence can encourage the sick person with the message that says, hey, the church has not forgotten you. We are behind you. I wonder if you're a spiritual leader in the fellowship that you attend, have you ever been invited? Have you ever gone to the hospital to pray over someone who is sick? It can be a powerful time as we bring encouragement to a person's life by praying for them. You think about that. We're going to look some more at this topic when we come together to study the Word of God, phrase by phrase.